Korea's first research-oriented university, specialized in natural sciences and engineering. KAIST. Here, our hopeful journey beyond Korea and toward the world begins. We had to pursue. We had to dream. Research for economic growth of the nation and of answers to lead building global values. Today's Korea exists because of KAIST. Founded on the 50 years spent for the nation and its people, we are now headed towards the world and humanity. We are preparing for the day to nurture global leaders beyond Korea, beyond simply the realm of science and technology, and toward our tomorrow of creating global values. We prepare for the strong leap toward our awaiting amazing future, the dialogue that will account for the next 50 years among renowned scientists, and a venue for discussion for the global community among key figures of the science and technology sector at home and abroad. KAIST will promise to continue to debate and communicate, to become an internationally renowned science and technology university. A new leap toward the global community.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for attending the KAIST 50th Anniversary International Symposium. My name is Sheng Li. I'm a professor at KAIST Department of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering. Today, I will be your moderator for session 1. The opening video showcased the theme of today's symposium, highlighting the footprint and future role of KAIST as we celebrate its 50th anniversary. The first session is on the future role of universities in society in the next 50 years. We are honored to have 3 distinguished speakers for this session. President Son Chul-shin of KAIST, who is joining us in person, President Thomas Rosenbaum of California Institute of Technology, Caltech, and President Joel Messa of Swiss Federal Institute of Technology in Zurich, ETH Zurich. Both are joining us virtually. In addition, we also have many participants who are joining us online. We thank everyone for the participation. Please allow me to now introduce our first keynote speaker, President of KAIST, Professor Son Chul-shin. President Son Chul-shin is a renowned physicist, experienced higher education administrator. President Shin is a fellow of the American Physical Society. He has played a pioneering role in the research of nanospinnics and clarified the noise state of 2-dimensional nanomagnetic thin films for the first time. President Shin joined the KAIST faculty in 1989 and held key administrative positions, including Vice President at KAIST. In 2011, he moved to Daegu Gyeongbok Institute of Science and Technology and served as its founding president for 6 years. In 2017, he returned to KAIST as the first alumnus to serve as KAIST president. He has also been deeply involved in Korea's national strategy and policymaking for science and technology, while serving as the Vice Chair of the Presidential Advisory Council on Science and Technology from 2013 to 2016. Today, with the theme, Vision and Innovations of KAIST for the Global Society in the Next 50 Years, he will present on KAIST founding, history, present, and goals for innovation. Now please join me to welcome President Shin to the stage.
Well, thank you, Professor Lee, for the kind introduction. Let me first express my deepest gratitude to President Rosenbaum and Caltech and President Meso, the ETH3, for your participation despite your very tight schedule. It is our great honor and pleasure to have you in this symposium celebrating 50th anniversary of KAIST. Well, in my talk, I would like to present our new vision and innovations for the global society in the next 50 years. The foundation report of KAIST, so-called Thurman report, stated the dream of the future that KAIST will by 2000 be a great institute of technology with an international reputation. It will have spearheaded a new era in education. Even more important, KAIST will have enhanced the self-confidence of Koreans. This dream has come true. KAIST has been behind Korea's advancement in science and technology and miraculous economic growth achieved within half a century. Many people say that if not for KAIST, Korea would not exist as it is today. Since its foundation, KAIST has made a history of many firsts in Korea and served as a catalyst for Korea's dramatic science and technology growth. For instance, KAIST has developed the first high-power laser, constructed the nation's first internet, launched Korea's first satellite, developed the first supercomputer, and the first humanoid robot Hugo, and so on. Also, KAIST has taken the lead in demonstrating Korea's scientific prowess by publishing more than 3,000 papers a year in the international journals and registering 150 overseas patents per year. Since the foundation, KAIST has nurtured nearly 70,000 graduates, including 14,500 PhDs. They have played pivotal roles in industry, university, research institute, and governments. For instance, about 25% of a PhD workforce in the semiconductor industry having global competitiveness are KAIST graduates. About 20% of the Korean university's engineering faculty are also our graduates. Well, mentioning about the international ranking, Thomson Reuters ranked KAIST as the most innovative university in Asia region for 3 consecutive years and 11th in the world. So the dream of KAIST that was conceived 50 years ago has mostly come true. Now we are marching forward to realize our next dream. We are now in a period of great transformation, which is called the First Industrial Revolution. In the era of the First Industrial Revolution, we'll encounter unprecedented exponential changes in the human society caused by 3 megatrends. First megatrend is hyperconnectivity. Now 65% of the whole population in the world uses mobile phones, and 48% of the population uses the internet. Also, there are more than 28 billion devices connected via IoTs. In the coming years, the number of mobile users and IoTs are expected to exponentially increase. Within next 50 years, all of the people and electronic devices in the world will be connected and will communicate at the speed of light. The second megatrend is super intelligence, realized by the rapid progress of AI via the technology of deep learning, brain science, and big data, together with advance in computer hardware. With such a rapid development of AI, as Ray Kurzweil predicted, we might face the singularity point within next 50 years, will AI surpasses human intelligence. The third megatrend is meta-convergence. New findings and innovations mostly occur through interdisciplinary and cross-disciplinary approaches, in particular via NB convergence, standing for nano, bio, information, and cognitive science. Moreover, we live in society where the physical, cyber, biological systems are conjoined by sensing, communication, computation, and control, namely meta-convergence world. Considering these megatrends in the era of the first industrial revolution, university innovation is imperative and urgent in the next 50 years. For our next dream in the coming 50 years, we envision to become global value creative leading university, creating academic, technological, economic, and social value at the global level, and thus become a university of science and technology innovation for humanity's happiness and prosperity. To this end, we have established strategic innovation plans in the 5 areas. For education, we'll first create global talents who will translate knowledge into social value. For research, we'll conduct research to overcome challenges for humanity. For technology commercialization, we'll pursue an entrepreneurial university that will enrich its technological value. For globalization, KAIST will move forward to serve as a world bridge. For future strategies, KAIST will provide science-based policies on global issues in the international community. Well, from now on, I would like to elaborate our innovation in those 5 areas. Talking about innovation for education, what kind of manpower should be fostered in the era of the first industrial revolution is a very crucial question for every university in the coming years. We KAIST will foster talent equipped with a challenge spirit, creativity, and caring mind, so-called C-cube talents. Challenge spirit, they can cope with the unsolved question in ways that have not been tried before. Creativity, that can solve the problems with the innovative ideas via collaboration. And caring is an attitude of inclusiveness and ethical responsibility. We opened the School of Transdisciplinary Study last year to foster convergent talents who can create new knowledge through a cross-disciplinary approach. This new school aims to nurture students with strengthening basic science and engineering education, humanities and social science convergent education, entrepreneurship education, and global leadership education. We cannot stress enough the importance of AI education for the first industrial revolution. So we emphasize AI education across the entire curriculum for undergraduate studies. We opened the Graduate School of AI for the first time in Korea in 2019. We plan to foster more than 100 graduate students annually. How to educate the G generation is a new challenge to educators. KAIST promotes Education 4.0. This offers flipped learning classes composed of online learning and offline discussion. We invest a great deal of resources into expanding the online infrastructure to facilitate these classes. In the offline discussion in the class, professor plays the role of facilitator, moderator, and mentor for students rather than an instructor. Talking about innovation for research, we want to be a first mover with our research. Our goal is to produce world first, best, or only research outcome. And we shift our R&D strategy to focus on creating the global value. We designate KAIST flagship project in biomedical area, energy and environment area, space and defense area, and the first industrial revolution research area. We select the most futuristic project and provide block funding for up to 10 years, pushing for making the best first or only outcome. One of the flagship projects is so-called COBRA project, very interesting name. This project is aiming for regeneration and recovery of a damaged neuron in the brain using light, and eventually aiming for treatments of Parkinson's and Alzheimer's diseases. Another flagship project is M3I3 project. This project is to develop novel materials utilizing machine learning and to investigate the structural property relationship of new materials. While COVID-19 is affecting the entire world, it gives our university new opportunities to accelerate the advancement of medical and bioengineering breakthroughs. We launched the COVID-19 antivirus New Deal R&D initiative last year. Led by 44 of our faculty members, the initiative involves 120 experts from universities, industries, and hospitals. We'll develop antivirus core technologies for prevention, diagnosis, protection, and treatment. This video clip demonstrates a mobile negative pressure room system that was recently developed. This mobile system is being sent to virus-stricken areas and can be constructed within few days. Ultimately, we hope to contribute to creating a new antivirus industry and enhance the well-being of humanity. We have launched a Singularity Professorship to support one-of-a-kind young professors who will work adamantly to challenge the unsolved equation or to seek out the most intriguing academic disciplines with unrivaled creativity. We'll support their research ideas with full-scale research funding for up to 10 years without any evaluation. Talking about innovation for technology commercialization, KAIST has been the cradle of startups in Korea. Our alumni have founded more than 1,200 startups, yielding $14 billion in annual revenue and creating 45,000 new jobs. We strongly encourage our students and professors to establish startups. To support them, we have launched the Institute of Startup, KAIST, in 2014. The Institute aims to invigorate entrepreneurship on campus, create an ecosystem in which startup can thrive, and help startup go abroad. For entrepreneurship education, KAIST is carrying out various programs. One of the programs is a convergence capstone design program for undergraduates. Multidisciplinary team composed of students, faculty, and company researchers work in teams to solve a problem which a company faces. To boost up technology commercialization, KAIST implements so-called triple helix education model in the graduate school, which well aligns education, research, and technology commercialization. The class and lab takes on research topics that can address on-site issues which a company experiences, and R&D results immediately lead to commercialization. This video clip shows one of the graduate classes with a triple helix model resolve the issues in an automatic distribution system for a semiconductor company. KAIST now becomes a role model university, benchmarked by many countries. Many nations are eager to establish KAIST in their countries. The first example is a Kenya KAIST project, which is to build a science and technology-oriented university, nurturing high-skilled workforce for Kenya's fast-track modernization. KAIST is the first Korean university providing turnkey-based consultant including educational curriculum, architectural design, and construction in a foreign country. This project is transforming KAIST from a recipient of a foreign aid to a donor status after only 50 years. We are planning to establish 10 KAISTs around the world in the next 50 years, which will provide KAIST an opportunity to contribute to the global community. As for innovation for future strategies, we have launched the Global Strategy Institute, GSI last year. GSI identifies the global issues proactively and provides a science-based policy and strategy through international forums. GSI aims to be a science-based global think tank. In the next 50 years, we would like to realize 10-10-10 dream. Those are to produce 10 singularity professors with a world-renowned academic reputation, to establish 10 decacorn startups with a company value of $10 billion, and to establish 10 KAIST around the world, including Kenya KAIST. Well, now let me conclude my presentation with a promise that KAIST will emerge as a university of science and technology innovation for humanity's happiness and prosperity in the next 50 years. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
President Shin, thank you for your stimulating speech. Our second keynote speaker is Caltech President, Professor Thomas Rosenbaum. Professor Rosenbaum is the ninth president of Caltech and professor in physics. He is an expert on the quantum mechanical nature of materials, conducting researches at Bell Laboratories, IBM Watson Research Center, and the University of Chicago, where he served as Vice President for Research and for Argonne National Lab, and then Provost, before moving to Caltech in 2014. Among the many honors he has received, President Rosenbaum is a Fellow of the American Physical Society, the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. He also received the prestigious William Macmillan Award for outstanding contribution to condensed matter physics. Currently, he serves on the Board of Governors for Argonne National Laboratory, the Secretary of Energy Advisory Board, on the Society for Science and the Public's Board of Trustees, as General Member of the Aspen Center for Physics and the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, Los Angeles Program Committee. Please welcome President Rosenbaum to deliver his keynote speech on universities, science, and society.
Thank you so much for the generous introduction, and a special thank you to President Shin for including me in this grand occasion and for his inspirational speech. We haven't achieved the hyperconnectivity yet that he talks about, but I do think it is worthwhile noting that the three speakers of this symposium, and I'm honored to be with President Missot as well, represent three different continents, testifying to the reach of science and technology across the globe. Universities and institutions devoted to the creation and preservation of knowledge trace their origins back 1,000 years. Individual universities survive for centuries, outlasting industries and even nation states. At the same time, universities must be dynamic and flexible, responding to intellectual opportunities and creating value for society. Achieving this balance requires a sharp sense of purpose and the advancement of fundamental values. In today's presentation, occasioned by KAIST's Golden Jubilee, I will explore opportunities for the future of research universities at the nexus of science and society. I will argue that to be sustainable, these opportunities must flow from the principles and perspectives that have made universities so successful over history. I start my comments with a passage from Danielle Allen, university professor at Harvard, a classicist, taken from an Aims of Education address she gave at the University of Chicago. She recounts her experience teaching a class while visiting the University of Wisconsin as September 11th, the 2001 terrorist attack on the United States, unfolded. For an hour in that Wisconsin classroom, we wandered off to Greece, to the Peloponnese, where the dry heat of the summer fills the air with the scent of all the spices growing in the landscape, where temples exposed to the elements on every promontory provide the nervous traveler with reference points, where the life is tied to the land and the olives, not the sea and the fish. Today I'm gone wandering again, this time with you. Are you with me? Can you imagine wooden ships hugging the shore, cutting out daringly straight across the sea to the craggy volcanic masses of the island city-states? Are you beginning to wonder what happened to Athens when it was at war with Sparta? In Madison, we wondered, and we also began asking more general questions like these. What are the strains on collaborative, collective, democratic decision-making that are likely to arise in democracies in times of crisis? Why will democratic citizens in crisis come to see their freedoms as luxuries rather than as basic necessities and the true source of their strength? Of what does democratic resilience consist? Are you also entertaining these questions? For an hour in Madison, we wandered away from ourselves, and yet we also, with our questions about Athens and Sparta, talked for the whole hour about what had just happened to us in the United States. I had entered that classroom bereft of thought, but in the midst of my paralysis, I began to question again. In the midst of my confusion, I began to think. Despite my grief, my mind was not numb. For an hour, by discussing Thucydides, a small group of about 16 of us escaped paralysis. In fact, I think we put it behind us. We began to figure out what questions were relevant to understanding our present situation. Mind you, we did not once mention New York, Washington, hijackers, or incomprehensibility. For talking about Athens and Sparta, we found the problems of crisis, in fact, quite comprehensible. The distance to which the text took us was our salvation. We learned from Professor Allen that universities can provide perspective on what fundamentally matters. They pass on and contextualize knowledge so that it illuminates present circumstances and enables the creation of new knowledge. They challenge us to learn and to be open to changing our minds through the exchange of ideas, to assimilate information from multiple outlooks, and to question our assumptions so that we are positioned for intellectual growth and discovery. These statements of values and perspective are no less germane for the sciences, especially in times when science is under pressure. An instructive example is the testimony of Fermi National Accelerator Laboratory Director Robert R. Wilson in April 1969 at the height of the Cold War in front of the Congressional Joint Committee on Atomic Energy. He was called to answer questions about the value of building Fermilab's first high-energy accelerator. Again and again, Wilson was pushed to define the high-energy frontier as a matter of national security. He demurred, famously summing up the case for investment in science and technology as follows. It has to do with, are we good painters, good sculptors, great poets? I mean, all the things that we really venerate and honor in our country and are patriotic about. In that sense, this new knowledge has all to do with honor and country, but it has nothing to do directly with defending our country, except to help make it worth defending. How do these observations relate to the broad topic of this symposium, and more specifically this panel, namely the future of universities and society in the next 50 years? I would argue that if we are serious as university leaders about having impact, of realizing the goals of creating new scientific paradigms, launching new scientific disciplines, and developing transformative technologies that address societal problems, then the types of perspectives offered by Daniel Allen and Robert Wilson will be essential. It is a role preferentially suited to universities with traditions of and commitment to the facts, to the scientific method, to diversity of opinion, to the free movement of people and ideas, and to academic freedom. We value the long-term creation of knowledge, and we are inspired by the potential to apply that knowledge to better people's lives today. Let me be less abstract. I submit, and here I am influenced by Caltech's mantra of not getting bigger, but getting better, that being fearless about the choice of problem is perhaps the key element in the university mission. It is important to ask constantly whether we are addressing the most important and influential science and what technological wherewithal is necessary to make significant inroads. There is large opportunity cost to switching directions when one is successful in a particular pursuit. But if that pursuit does not have or will not continue to have broad scientific or societal impact, then we need to be unafraid to retool. This approach requires the long view, but also the ability to disassociate oneself from the successes, not the failures, but the successes of the past. Take LIGO, the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory. Here was an opportunity to explore the most violent processes in the universe involving black hole mergers, neutron-star collisions, and supernovae, revealing the processes that create the heavy elements. We are literally stardust. But in the 1960s, simply seemed unreachable. Given that information only travels across the universe at the speed of light, via electromagnetic radiation and via gravitational waves, detection of gravitational waves is a transformative act that echoes Galileo's invention of an optical telescope to discover the moons of Jupiter. LIGO was a 40-year quest, an improvement of 10 orders of magnitude in sensitivity, and the need to overcome the vocal skepticism of a good part of the astronomical community. It was universities across the world, led by Caltech and MIT, and in partnership with the United States National Science Foundation, that had the perspective and the persistence, the ambition and the fearlessness to bet big on such an outcome, and to open the heavens to a new form of interrogation. Take artificial intelligence and machine learning. Despite intense commercial activity, who else but universities will develop the mathematical underpinnings of a field where data will be more often sparse than dense? Uncertainty is difficult to gauge, and broad societal impact will depend on trust that programming is unbiased. These types of questions may not be the most prevalent in near-term applications with all their impressive results, but they will make or break the field. Take neuroscience. To understand the brain requires investigations that range from probing single neutrons to interpreting the collective behavior of networks of neurons, to developing animal models, to devising clinical interventions, to parsing the neurobiology of human decision-making, to understanding the societal expression of human emotions. Progress depends on harnessing the skills of biologists, chemists, computer scientists, engineers, medical doctors, physicists, and social scientists, and to exploring their intersections at the interfaces of the disciplines. It is only at a university that one can imagine such a confluence. Take directed evolution, or quantum computing, or new imaging modalities, or any of the foci of the academic and industrial communities represented at this symposium, and you have the same tension to risk failure in pursuit of the transformative technology while still staying in business. It is part of the university ethos to be farther out on the risk curve, and frankly, with the demise of the Bell Labs of the world, the only places at present where this can be undertaken systematically and at scale. More is at stake than curiosity-driven research. Creating knowledge worthy of the ages undergirds the ability of societies to renew their technological capacities over the long term. There is often a false dichotomy set up between scientific discovery and applications. We need both curiosity-driven research and use-inspired research. These intersecting spheres are connected by the cultural strengths that universities provide, valuing excellence, championing innovation, honoring diverse perspectives, and mitigating the opportunity costs that arise when an investigator sets out to define a new direction. Generating and executing ideas that our successors 100 years or 1,000 years from now will care about, just as the September 2001 Wisconsin classroom could be revitalized by Thucydides, requires fearlessness and ambition, rigor and persistence, and the resilience achieved through an unyielding commitment to fundamental academic values. We look forward to celebrating profound discoveries with KAIST over the coming decades, as together we develop and advance university practice and tradition. Thank you.
Thank you, President Rosenbaum, for your very inspiring speech. The next and final speaker of this session is President Joel Messel of ETH Zurich. Professor Messel has been the president of ETH Zurich since 2019, where he is also a professor in physics. President Messel earned his doctoral degree in the field of solid-state physics, conducting researches at both ETH Zurich and the Institut La Langevin in France. From 1992 to 1997, he conceived and co-realized the time-of-flight spectrometer focus at the neutron spallation source of the Paul Schreier Institute. He then spent several years working at the Argonne National Lab in the United States. In 1999, he returned to Switzerland, where he assumed various positions at both ETH and PSI, the last one being the director of PSI for 10 years until 2018. President Messel received numerous awards for his scientific achievements, among them the IBM Prize of the Swiss Physical Society and the Lasses Prize of ETH Zurich. He served as chairman of the subcommittee Structural and Magnetic Excitations of ILL and chairman of the PSI Research Commission. He is also board member of various national and international organizations. The topic of his keynote presentation today is the future role of universities in an ever-changing world. Please welcome President Joel Messel.
Thank you so much for the introduction. Dear President Shin, dear colleagues, students of KAIST, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, thank you for inviting me and Tom Rosenbaum to this symposium. I feel honored to be able to speak to you today. Before I share a couple of thoughts with you on the profile of a future university, let me say that ETH Zurich highly respects KAIST as one of the leading universities worldwide and a long-standing valued partner. Our relationship goes back as far as 1995 with the first Memorandum of Understanding on academic cooperation and exchange. Since then, KAIST has become a valued destination for study abroad for ETH students. We also have the pleasure of welcoming a steady stream of KAIST graduates among our students and research staffs. So I would like to congratulate the KAIST on behalf of the Board of Directors and all the ETH community on its 50th anniversary. You have a second reason to be proud of. According to the latest Bloomberg Innovation Index, South Korea ranks first, followed by Singapore and Switzerland. And I firmly believe that KAIST played an essential role here. So congratulations to this achievement too. The reflection on the future role of universities starts with the attempt to get the broad picture of the national and international setting in which universities operate. Climate change, the health crisis, and many more problems transcend national boundaries and require international cooperation. The Sustainable Development Goals and the corresponding Agenda 2030 remind us, academics, of this urgent call for action. The globalization of higher education has intensified the competition between universities over the past years. Big IT companies are also competing with universities in search for talents. The political framework conditions differ from country to country. So do the cultural and political factors that impact universities. But the core questions seem to be similar for most institutions. It is about academic freedom and autonomy, about reliable funding, and the open access to the international network. University, finally, must acknowledge social change. There is a call for more transparency, more diversity, and more inclusion that universities have to embrace when recruiting new faculty members or outline their strategies. Education is and will continue to be at the core of academic activity. For technical universities such as KAIST, Caltech, and ETH Zurich, the challenge is to provide a solid foundation in mathematics, natural sciences, and in scientific methods that outlast short-lived trends and fashions. The digital disruption in the economy makes additional soft skills an important asset for our students. ETH has therefore initiated several programs to foster creative, critical, and entrepreneurial thinking. Students need a space for this. With our Students' Project House, we offer them a place and infrastructure with 3D printers and all they need to test out their ideas. Or we organize every year a so-called ETH Week, where students across all disciplines develop ideas how to tackle big global challenges. A final remark on education. It is quite obvious that with the accelerated pace of digitalization, we will have more hybrid forms of learning and teaching in the future. It was mentioned flipped classes, for example. But it is my conviction that technology will never replace the interaction between humans for a good learning experience. As mentioned earlier, humanity is facing a number of challenges we can only tackle if we work together. Universities are key in this collective effort. With our research, we contribute to decarbonizing our economies, to developing sustainable and affordable food chains, to improving our healthcare systems, or to driving digital transformation forward. Having said this, it is of great importance that we let our researchers room for curiosity-driven research. This was beautifully mentioned by Tom Rosenbaum. It is where scientific breakthroughs occur, particularly at the interface of disciplines. Without basic research, the pipeline of innovations will dry out sooner or later. Let me give you an example. The history of science is full of examples where it took a long time for basic research to be translated into innovation. If we look at the development of magnetic resonance imaging, for example, it began 80 years ago with a physics experiment by Isidore Rabi. The aim was to learn about the internal structure of atomic nuclei. More pioneering work was done by a number of researchers, for which each and everyone finally received the Nobel Prize. Among those, several ETH graduates like Felix Bloch, Richard Ernst, and Kurt Wüthrich, who continued the research and refined the methods. Today, medical diagnosis would be inconceivable without magnetic resonance imaging, MRI. The transfer of knowledge and technology is a third mandate that will remain crucial for universities in the future, particularly for the technical ones. Against the backdrop of ever faster paced innovation cycles, universities must increase their effort to translate their scientific discoveries into real-world applications and team up with industry. Just two graphs to illustrate how things have evolved at our university over the last years. ETH Zurich ETH Zurich has roughly 300 new contracts for collaborations every year, mainly with industry partners. On the other hand, we have seen an impressive growth of spin-off companies. Interestingly enough, with a new record of 34 spin-offs in 2020, in the very year of the corona pandemic. I must say we didn't expect that. Education, research, tech transfer, and dialogue with society. This mission may have played a less prominent role back in time, but today, dialogue with our key stakeholders is a must, with politics, industry, but also with society at large. We organize events on and off campus and meet members of the parliament on a regular basis to discuss issues of concern and explain them why we do what we do. This dialogue has become even more important in the light of the past months, when we think of all the science task forces that were established to advise the governments in their decision-making and management of the health crisis. For many scientists, it was a new experience. They suddenly found themselves in the media spotlight and in the middle of a public debate about the right measures to take against the virus. Communication between the world of science and politics is very challenging, but we have no choice but to continue this dialogue in post-corona times and learn from the current crisis for the future. The digital transformation brings tremendous changes to our lives. The list of disruptive technologies is long and many of them already a reality. Let's take the case of artificial intelligence. It helps us improve medical diagnostic and therapy, increase the safety of our transport systems, reduce food waste, and proved useful and beneficial in many other areas. On the other hand, with the growing use of AI in our cars, homes, and in public places, data protection and privacy issues are of raising concern. We, as a universities, must therefore lead the way toward trustworthy, accessible, and inclusive AI systems for the benefit of society. This is the vision of, for example, of our new ATH AI Center that involves more than 80 faculty members across all disciplines. In the same spirit that ETH Zurich, together with its sister institution EPFL, recently launched an initiative with the International Committee of the Red Cross, ICRC, to use digital technology to support humanitarian aid. As universities have grown over the years, they have become more diverse in terms of individual profiles and cultural backgrounds. ETH Zurich is no exception. As a matter of fact, 70% of our doctoral students and faculty members are non-Swiss. So we are one of the most international universities. And yet we still have a gender inequality issue with only 15% of women professors. The board of directors and the school are committed to change that. It means, among many other things, to raise the awareness of our own biases and to rethink our recruiting processes. Last year, we were able to appoint 40% women for a new professorship. So first results are showing up, but let's face it, we still have a long way to go until we reach gender parity. Another topic of priority is how we can make sure that the most talented, regardless of who they are and where they come from, get a chance to become engineers or natural scientists. Access to universities should not depend on social origin or wealth. I'm well aware there are no easy solutions, but universities should work together on this and strive for an inclusive and fair system of higher education. A widening gap in income, wealth, and access to education puts the social cohesion in jeopardy. As the world changes, university must embrace change as well. This statement seems pretty straightforward, but as you all know, change in big organizations, especially those with a long history, is a challenging exercise. It is a little bit like changing course on a large cruise liner compared to the flexibility of a speedboat. But the effort is worthwhile. I can tell you that 1 year after we have started an ambitious project at our university called Rethink. The goal of Rethink is to make our university fit and ready for the next years, the next decades. Along 6 work streams, we ask ourselves questions about our governance and the interaction between professors, departments, administration. We have launched a broad discussion on the values ETH should stand for. The process is designed in a participatory way to make sure that all relevant university groups can express their views and voice their concerns. It is a lot of work that involves hundreds of people. At this stage, it is too early to report on our findings, but I'm personally impressed by the quality of the discussions and the commitment of my colleagues. I'm convinced that this experience will strengthen the whole university and make the organization more agile. While we are celebrating the 50 years anniversary of the KAIST, the world still grapples with the devastating consequences of the pandemic. And beyond the pandemic, there are many more unsolved issues at the horizon. Nevertheless, there are good reasons to remain positive. Firstly, the global COVID-19 crisis has shown how crucial and irreplaceable science is for today's world, and secondly, that we can only tackle the many challenges if we work together across the borders. The fact that vaccines have been developed in less than a year is a first and foremost a huge success for science. Many companies that were instrumental in the development of the vaccines have direct links to the academic world. Thousands of scientific papers have been published on COVID-19 over the last months. It is fair to say that the swift reaction of the scientific community together with the pharmaceutical industry was only possible because the foundations had been laid years ago or even decades ago with investments in academic research. Even though the crisis management has triggered controversies in many parts of the world, the role of science seems to be broadly acknowledged. According to a recent survey, the Swiss population's trust in science has even increased compared to before the outbreak of the pandemic. So to sum it up, while the core mission of universities hasn't fundamentally changed, the institutions must nevertheless adapt their business system, if you want, to a changing environment. If they do it successfully, they not only have a legitimate place, but they are as well poised to shape the future of our knowledge-based societies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Massa, for your very insightful presentation. Once again, I would like to thank all 3 of our keynote speakers for the wonderful presentations today. Now we are going to move to a Q&A session and receive questions and comments from the audience. The Q&A will be hosted by our KAIST President, Professor Sanchar Sin.
Thank you, Professor Lee. Let me first express my deepest gratitude to the 2 presenters for making wonderful and thought-provoking presentation. It has been really a good time and opportunity to learn more about the 2 leading universities in the world. I'm very glad to moderate the panel discussion and Q&A session. And as mentioned in my presentation, KAIST has established a new vision called the Vision 2031. And we are striving to transition from world-class university to a global leading university. Caltech and ETH Zurich are truly global leading university. Caltech is a small university with 300 faculty members and 2,300 students, but world-renowned science and engineering institute earning international recognition, including 41 Nobel Prizes. President Rosenbaum, I'm very curious that what have been the driving forces of Caltech to be a global leading university? Please give some advice for KAIST to become global leading university.
Well, thank you. We can learn from KAIST as well, so I want to start by saying that.
Thank you for that.
But I think it's cultural. I think the most important aspect is strengthening the culture and having the right culture. In a lot of ways, that's a definition of my job, is to try to do that well. As you point out, we're very small, and because we're very small with only 300 faculty members, we can't do everything. So we are constantly asking, what are the most promising areas, and how do we invest in them to become the world leader or one of the world leaders in that area? And the intellectual rigor associated with that, I think, is very important. It also means that you have to change directions. And we create a culture where faculty members are unafraid to try different things. So they may be educated in one area, but if they see an important scientific problem, we try to encourage them to pursue that. And part of that, of course, is having flexible resources that are unfettered, that allow faculty members and students to try new things and take risks that way that may pay off in big ways. And finally, let me note the intersection of the disciplines. One structural aspect that's interesting at Caltech is that although, of course, graduate students are admitted in individual programs, once they come to Caltech, they can work for any faculty member across the whole institution. And so research groups are composed of students who may be biologists, computational scientists, engineers, all together. And that exchange of ideas is extremely important.
Thanks so much. You emphasize the culture of a university is very important. Well, ETH3 has been an engine behind the global competitiveness of Swiss industry, and is a globally premier university, attracting talents from all over the world, producing 21 Nobel laureates. Present method, same question. What have been the driving forces of ETH3 to be a global leading university? Give us some advice.
I will certainly not give you advices because you are doing so well and your presentation was very impressive, Professor Shin. ETH Zurich has a long history of connection with the development of modern Switzerland. So ETH Zurich was created as a federal university just a few years after the modern constitution and the last civil war we had in Switzerland. And that's how we provided engineers, to build bridges, tunnels, railroads. And so being linked to the economy is part of the DNA of this university. What we have started in the past years is to go through different disciplines. We created this program, Open ETH, that runs throughout the schools, throughout the departments, and even beyond. We want to partner with our different partner institutions throughout Switzerland. I think the success factors has been autonomy, reliable funding, and what is very important, access to international networks and talent pools. As I said, we are very, very open for that. We want to be very attractive. And of course, Switzerland is an attractive country in itself for various reasons, mountains maybe, and that's also an asset we have been benefiting from.
Well, I totally agree with the comment that autonomy of funding is very important. We have to learn from your university. Well, next topic which I'd like to discuss is on digital divide. The pandemic has severely disrupted an entire sector of our society. And among others, the education sector has been the hardest hit. Approximately 1.6 billion students from 190 countries, which account for 91% of the student population in the world, have experienced educational disruptions. For many without access to the internet, the digital divide is wider than ever. It is obvious that digital disparity will accelerate the educational inequality, eventually leading to irreparable socio-economic disparities. In our country, Korea, According to a recent survey, about 96% of the citizens agree that pandemic continue to widen the existing learning gap. I would like to ask how your university has responded in order to sustain its educational environment during this challenging time, and what are the activities or universities to facilitate a more equal and inclusive recovery for the future? President Rosenbaum, would you say first?
Certainly, thank you. And this is a major challenge for all of us. Caltech is completely virtual right now in terms of its undergraduate instruction. And as President Rousseau mentioned earlier, there really isn't a substitute for the human interaction. You learn so much from each other in this fashion, but we try to recreate that digitally as much as possible. So we've broken our student groups into 6 or 8 members, our student body into groups of 6 or 8 members. Each one has a faculty member that's associated with them and graduate students, and they get together a few times a week to both do educational portions and also social aspects to try to create a collaborative environment, places where students can thrive and exchange ideas, even if it is virtually, and where they can feel that they're supported in terms of their studies and working together. In fact, Caltech is pass-fail the first 2 quarters of our instruction to encourage students to be able to do their problem sets together and to learn from each other. I think that as we come out of this pandemic, being able to create this sort of environment for universities in general, to be able to have hybrid modes of instruction where we can reach out to students wherever they are, create that feeling of security is going to be extremely important. We also have to provide the financial support that allows them to thrive. And at least in the United States, a lot of students do not recognize that institutions like Caltech are need blind. That is, if your family income is low enough, basically we will pay for your education. And so we have to get the story out so that everyone who has the desire and talent to thrive in a scientific and technological environment has that opportunity.
Thank you so much for sharing your activities. President Messot, do you have any comment for that?
I think we had very similar situation. First, because we were kind of ready with our IT infrastructure, we were able to go within a few days completely online in the first wave. So in last year, with more than 1,000 lectures. Interestingly, the students were 98% of the students were happy or very happy with the way we handled the situation, which was important for us. Now what we see is that the second wave is much more harder on the students. There were many more cases of psychological help was needed for the students. So we have put a service together, a line that they can call. And we have ramped up our effort to assist those who needed this help. We have given interest-free loans for students to bridge financial difficulties. And also we have created a network. For example, I do sport sometimes with the students online just to raise the mood. But what is important for us was this year, last semester, we had newcomers, new students coming to our university. They have no network, they don't know Zurich, and they had to stay in their room. So for these students, we needed really to care more. Our goal was that the students don't lose a year in their curriculum, because that could have tremendous consequences on the medium term. And so far we were lucky. We are just finishing the online, the on-site exams. We were allowed to do on-site exams, and we are in the last days of this session. and so far with no outbreak.
Okay, thank you so much for sharing your activities. Well, now we move to AI education ethics. 4 years ago, we were so shocked by the fact that Google developed AI AlphaGo, achieved landslide victories against human Go champions such as Isedol and Koje. And nowadays, AI is enabler of diverse industries, including autonomous vehicles, drone, speech processing, healthcare, finance, manufacturing, robot, and you name it. In the near future, AI robot, which I call Robo Sapiens, will be everywhere in industry as well as in our daily lives. We Homo sapiens will not be able to compete with the Robo Sapiens with regard to memorizing, information processing, calculating, and physical abilities. Therefore, in our education, we should further cultivate the irreplaceable merits of human beings, such as creativity and empathy, insight, and wisdom. More importantly, we need to consider ethical issues when employing AI robots in the industry as well as in the daily lives. We need to put tremendous efforts into preventing the potential dark side of AI in the coming digital society by educating our students about ethics of AI algorithm. So I'd like to listen from both of you what kind of education you have done and what do you prepare for the era of the AI in the years to come. President Rosenbaum, would you say first?
Okay, thank you very much. I think you stated the problem beautifully. I'm not sure there's a huge amount to add to how you delineated the issues. Let me just say that what we're trying to think about is to understand, if you will, the inner workings of some of the AI algorithms. Right now, they're very much a black box. And it's very hard to understand where the conclusions come from. It's obviously pattern recognition as opposed to causality. And there's not much sense of what the error bars are and uncertainties. And I think some sort of transparency about that is going to be necessary for societies, for general public to both appreciate and trust what's going into these algorithms, these robots, and so on that come out of it. From a academic perspective, I think one of the most fascinating issues is whether physical law will actually come out of these AI algorithms. Right now, I don't think we're there yet. It's not clear that that will emerge. But if it does, the competition will be even more extreme from robo-sapiens.
Thank you so much. How about President Mesot?
Yes, Tom Rosenbaum pointed out very clearly one of the big issues is understanding what is exactly AI doing. And so we are all working on this issue at the research level. But I think for the students, maybe I will concentrate more on the students. What is important is to bring the ethical dimension in the curricula right from the beginning. And so we are introducing this at ETH after we have realized that actually AI is already completely daily life in all our departments. All students are using this sometimes as a black box, so they need to understand better. So we develop also the critical thinking initiative that was launched by my predecessor, by the way. And the idea is really to have students questioning every single step that they are doing, that they really try to understand what they are using as a toolbox and how it is working. We have this ETH week that I mentioned earlier. Here, the idea is to tackle from zero a topic of global relevance, such as energy, mobility, or food, And all 16 departments of ETH are represented, all backgrounds, all years, all nationalities. So we make teams of maximum diversity. That's the idea. And then they work and they provide a solution to a problem that they have posed themselves. This is very interesting. That's the way we try to encourage our students to become creative, self-reflective.
Well, thank you so much for your wonderful comments. Well, today, many KAIST students and alumni and professors are here with us as, virtually. Hello, everyone. Please wave hands. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So I'd like to take some questions from the online audience. First, let me take a question from KAIST students. Shubranil Shemgupta, could you raise your hand? Oh, you're there. Okay, good. Please ask your questions.
From the Department of Mechanical Engineering. It is an honor to be able to meet the presidents of Caltech and the president of ETH Zurich virtually. And I would like to direct my question to the presidents of Caltech and ETH Zurich. KAIST, as you know, has emerged as a top research institute. Having said that, students from various academic backgrounds are studying here at KAIST, including students from the top high schools in Korea and also international students from more than 90 countries. So all of these students have different learning needs and different academic backgrounds. So I was wondering how KAIST should prepare itself and its curriculum to become a top educational institution in order to nurture and evaluate all these students that need different learning approaches so that none of the talents are left out or so that none of the talents are wasted. So thank you for your time.
Well, that's a wonderful question for KAIST to become a truly internationalized university. President Rosenbaum, what is your advice for the question?
If you ask what universities should do and do well, it is bring together talented people from different backgrounds and different perspectives and let them exchange ideas, let them argue. Let them listen when they argue so that they may change their points of view. And when this works well, all the students are engaged and one creates knowledge in this fashion and constantly tests it. It's very much, of course, like the scientific method. Of course, you point out very well in your question, students come with different abilities and different backgrounds. We found helpful at Caltech to have a core curriculum that is to put everyone through a certain set of basic scientific and engineering courses at the beginning so that they share the language, they share the experience, and then they branch out in their own ways. And then finally, I would note the importance of hands-on experience, whether it's research during the summer, it's research during the year, whether it's industrial internship. And that without that, it's very hard to know if you really, this is really the path you should take with your life. And so I think the combination of these elements can address the needs of students with very different preparations, backgrounds, and outlook.
Well, how about President Mesut?
So I fully sign what President Rosenbaum said. So maybe I make a complementary remark. I think it is important that universities continue and intensify their dialogue with the stakeholders. And this includes also the non-academic world. We should watch carefully that our societies do not drift apart with the academic elite, how we call it, and on one side and the rest of the world on the other side. And this implies that vocational apprenticeship gets more social appreciation. This may sound odd from a university president, but you know, the three presidents here are physicists, and we all know that without good technicians, our experiments are not worthwhile. So we need to acknowledge that various sectors contribute to the well-being of our societies. And in Switzerland, for example, vocational training is of very high quality and an excellent opportunity for young people to start their professional careers. So this is an important ingredient. And they are pastorals, so the best vocational student can go later on to university.
Thank you so much. Well, I'll take the next question from another student. Shin-Yeop Kim is there? Oh, you are there.
Yeah, hello.
Okay, so what is your questions?
Hello, my name is Kim Shin-Yeop, and I'm studying at School of Computing at KAIST. First of all, it is such an honor to meet the president of Caltech and ETH Zurich. As a national university student, I want to become a talented person who can make contributions not only for my personal growth, but also to the development of my alma mater. For the next 50 years of KAIST, what attitudes and mindsets are expected of us as KAIST students?
Well, I think that's a very important question as a student of a mission-oriented university of KAIST. Well, President Rosenbaum, can you answer for that?
Sure, and maybe this isn't quite the answer you expected, but I would say have fun. You are doing science and technology at an extraordinary time in human history. I mean, there's been a rebirth of astronomy with gravitational waves, as well as radio astronomy, optical astronomy. So these multimodal ways, we can ask questions about the beginning of the universe that were impossible before. We will have quantum computers in the next decades and be able to do calculations that couldn't be done before. The age of biology in a lot of ways is now, and as Joe Massoud mentioned, COVID-19 is a great example, I mean a horrible example, but a great example of how science could come riding to the rescue because of the investment we've made in biology and biotechnology. So enjoy that, enjoy the fact that science reaches across international boundaries, as we see tonight. That you're part of an enterprise greater than you are, and one where you can learn from individuals around the world.
That's wonderful advice. How about President Massoud? What is your advice for the students?
I would say 3 points, some similar to what was said. First, I think I consider to be a privilege to be able to study at the university like ours. For myself, I was the first one in my family to have this opportunity, so I value that very much. So it's important not to forget this, and that we give back something to society, as it was raised in the question, because it's also our taxpayer that has invested in our education. Second is develop patience for what you do. Try as many times as you want, visit different courses and pick up the things that you like to do without caring about maybe if there is a job at the end, because if you like what you do, there will always be a job. And the last part, remain open for new ideas and be curious of the world. Even more now maybe than a few decades ago, since things are changing so fast. So to have this agility to switch fields is going to be essential. So see education as not only a 4 or 5 years period, but a lifelong journey.
Well, that's another wonderful advice. Well, due to the time constraint, I will take the last questions from Ibrahim bin Yasir. Could you raise your hand? Oh, you're there. Okay.
Hello.
What is your questions?
Thank you, Professor. It's a privilege. My question was related to sustainability. So recently, we have seen a number of platforms and organizations that provide free or low-cost subscription training to students. So they teach skills like AI, data analytics, web development, supply chain, etc. And these are the minimum skills required to enter the job market. Now, as university education becomes expensive every year and the problem of student debt increasing, how can future universities sustain their functioning and yet become institutions that provide accelerators and innovators for the future? Thank you.
Well, that's critical questions for the future of a university. President Rosenbaum, what is the answer for that question?
Not every university can do everything in society. You need a combination of different types of universities that address societal needs. As you pointed out in your question, there are a number of vocational training, and some countries, and Switzerland is a wonderful example, do that better than others, that are essential activities and more specialized. There are community colleges in the United States that bring students up to speed who have not had the experience in high school that others have had the privilege of having. You know, we as major research universities contribute in a particular way. We don't educate hundreds of thousands of students, but we educate students who are able to adapt, who have an education where they learn to solve problems, where they don't learn one skill, but learn how to develop those skills over time to address the problems that arise. But it's an ecosystem. And I think we have to look at it as such, and that there is necessity to support the various contributors to the entire ecosystem. And we need to be really good at what we're good at, and we need to support the roles of the other institutions that are also contributing to society.
Okay. How about President Messer? How can you handle these questions as a CEO for your university?
Yes, maybe I will address a special part of the question that is mentioned, the student debt that you mentioned. I think it's a serious problem with no easy solution to it, unfortunately. I think it needs a reflection on the value of higher education and discussion about how to access the universities. At the end, it comes down to the question of public funding of universities. Is our society willing to spend enough money to keep tuition fees low and make higher education accessible to everyone? And of course, every country handles this in a different way.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you for the students' wonderful questions and President's insightful and very helpful answers. Considering drastic change during the last 50 years, we will confront unprecedented change in the next 50 years. And the world in 2071 will be totally different from now. I would like to ask both of you to give final remarks on how you imagine society will change over the next 50 years and how universities should prepare for these changes. President Rosenbaum, would you say first?
Yeah, knowing how society will change 50 years from now is really a hard problem. It will change, we know that much. As I tried to discuss a little in my presentation, I think we will be well served as universities and university leaders by having a firm grasp on our values, of knowing what matters, knowing how we can contribute to society. And I would say, inspired by this evening's conversation, that the exchange of ideas reaching across boundaries is going to be a key element in making sure that we retain the flexibility and the depth of understanding to be able to address the challenges as society goes ahead.
You gave us, President Shin, but maybe the first thing I can do is repeat a quote that is attributed to Niels Bohr, physicist and Nobel Prize winner. Prediction is very difficult, especially if it's about the future. But it's probably fair to say that universities will remain essential for societies to progress under the following assumptions. First, that they remain privileged places of academic freedom, that was mentioned several times. That they are capable of imparting valuable knowledge, values, and attitudes to their students. And last, that they, as learning organizations, embrace change and keep up an open dialogue with society. If we can keep these 3 points, then I believe our universities have a good future.
Thank you so much. Well, I'd like to close this session with my final remarks. The world has always been volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous at various times and various places. We know that crises always come with opportunities. New knowledge and advancement of science and technology push the humanity to become more prosperous. The COVID-19 pandemic outbreak reminds us how we are closely connected. So we should work together to build a world of growing prosperity. The one thing for sure is that only the advancement of science and technology will deliver us from this crisis. We all know that unwavering innovations in the research sector and global collaboration will realize the breakthroughs. How to improve life quality and benefit humanity are long-standing research topics that KAIST is pursuing. In the years to come, KAIST will move forward to address global issues with global partners to benefit all of humanity. Without doubt, the world in 2071 will be totally different. New technologies and new crises have appeared. There is saying that the best way to predict the future is to create it. I believe the pursuit of knowledge based on science and technology, a challenging spirit, creative solution, and caring minds will overcome all the challenges ahead. I sincerely hope to closely collaborate among Caltech, ETH3, and KAIST to overcome the global crisis and to continue to contribute to the happiness and prosperity of humanity. Thank you once again to President Rosenbaum and President Messot for your participation in this symposium, despite your very busy schedules. I wish you all safe and healthy in the pandemic. Also wish prosperity of your university in the next 50 years. I would like to close this session with a deep gratitude to all the participants. My name is Song-Chul Shin, and President of KAIST. Thank you all.
Thank you, President Shin. Thank you to our speakers for your insight and input, and thank you to our wonderful audience online as well. This brings us to the end of session 1 for our international symposium. In session 2, we will discuss the topic, KAIST for the global community. We will take a short break now, and we will resume at 3:40. We look forward to your continuing participation. Thank you.
You feel beautiful talk, Tom.
Oh, yours was great too, Joel.
Ladies and gentlemen, and all of our online participants, it's a pleasure to welcome you to the KAIST 50th Anniversary International Symposium. My name is Toyeon An, professor from the School of Humanities and Social Sciences at KAIST. It's an honor to welcome you back to session 2 of today's symposium. We talked about the roles and directions for the future during session 1, and now we will move ahead to discuss the topic KAIST for the global community. For this session, we are joined by our excellencies, Rob Rapson, U.S. Charge d'Affaires to South Korea, Abdullah Saif Al-Nuaimi, UAE Ambassador to South Korea, Muembe Mwenzi, Kenyan Ambassador to South Korea, Einar Jensen, Danish Ambassador to South Korea, Mumtaz Zahra Baloch, Pakistani Ambassador to South Korea, Hazim Fahmy, Egyptian Ambassador to South Korea, and Simon Smith, British Ambassador to South Korea. We also have Professor Taeyoung Lee, International Relations Advisor to KAIST President, as well as Professor Mansung Yim, the Associate Vice President of the KAIST International Office with us today. Before we begin the presentations, KAIST President Sungcheol Shin will deliver his welcoming remarks. Please welcome President Shin onto the stage.
Good afternoon, distinguished participants, honorable guests, and ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased and privileged to be here again this afternoon to welcome you to this very special international symposium. This symposium is part of our celebration of the 50th anniversary of KAIST. We just had a sister session earlier this afternoon and heard from global leaders of higher education on the role of universities in the future in association with the refining KAIST mission for the future. Now, in this second session, we want to think about the role of KAIST for the global community and how we work together to solve the needs of a human society in the future. In this session, I have a special honor of hosting very distinguished guests from Africa, America, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. They are 7 distinguished ambassadors to the Republic of Korea from the USA, the UK, Denmark, the UAE, Pakistan, Egypt, and Kenya, representing the global community. It is my great pleasure and honor to welcome them. They will discuss various aspects of international cooperation of KAIST, covering the past, the present, and the future. KAIST was established through international cooperation. It was the USAID's $6 million loan that enabled the physical development of KAIST under the government's dedicated and unwavering support. At that time, South Korea was one of the poorest countries in the world. Our national standard of living was even lower than that of North Korea. KAIST grew through international cooperation. The rapid economic growth of our country provides the necessary resources for international collaboration. International collaboration expanded the KAIST horizon and helped us to be broader-minded. International collaboration also encourages us to work harder and help us to earn global reputation. Through these efforts, KAIST serves as the growth engine of the national economy and push our country to emerge as a global innovator leader. Now, KAIST wants to contribute to the global community through international cooperation. Through partnership with 294 institutions and universities from 65 countries, KAIST today educates the future leaders, performs innovative research, serves the needs of society. We want to go further by becoming truly a leading global value creative university, thus contributing to the well-being of the global community. That requires cooperation, research cooperation, educational cooperation, and even cooperation to guard and preserve and further advance global values for the betterment of a human society are needed. In that regard, the insight and wisdom shared in this session from our distinguished participants will be especially important and highly appreciated. This session will help us to redefine our mission for the global community. I'm deeply grateful to all of our speakers in the session, as well as all of you who are attending this session online. I hope this session will be exceptionally fruitful and inspiring experience to all of us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President. Thank you, President Shin. Now we have a presentation by Professor Man-sung Yim, the Associate Vice President of the KAIST International Office, who will give us a brief overview of KAIST international cooperation in terms of its past, present, and future. After the presentation, we will invite 7 distinguished foreign ambassadors to South Korea to join us for panel speeches and a group discussion. Without further ado, I'd like to invite Professor Man-sung Yim onto the stage.
Good afternoon, distinguished guests, honorable excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure and privilege to give you an overview presentation of KAIST International Cooperation history. This presentation is to provide a basis and overview of our discussions with panelists and audience. My talk consists of 4 parts, just giving you a history and then talk about the future of KAIST vision. These are the images we want to erase or forget. But these are the reason why we exist today. South Korea was one of the poorest countries in the world at the end of Korean War. And even 1970, South Korea was still one of the poorest countries in the world. So we had to dream. KAIST was part of our dream. We focus on fundamentals, at the same time on national needs. We developed some of the core technologies, including technology localization. So these are examples of the localized technologies. We developed the functional polymer, which provided a fundamental material for electronic products, localization of third-generation antibiotics, first Korean data communication technology, and also our Pentium chip microprocessors. We also developed nation's core technologies for our industrial economic growth, Korean internet, our satellite technology, the world's first wireless charging electric bus, the largest searching portal in South Korea, the world's first graphic online game, and our first disaster management robot. And we became the host of Robot Soccer World Cup, and also we produced first astronaut, Dr. So-yeon Lee. Basically, our achievement led to the success of our country, but most importantly, we produced much needed human capital. So as of this Friday, we are producing about 70,000 degrees under KAIST, including 14,500 PhDs. About 20% of Korean engineering professors are from KAIST. About 25% of R&D workforce at Samsung are from KAIST. We really helped our nation to become economically, industrially competitive and enhanced our national prestige. We have produced many knowledge products. This slide shows our domestic and international patents. And we also helped our nation to create educational reform. So KAIST really raised the bar for the performance measures of professors and educational institutions in South Korea, which led to overall improvement of higher education in South Korea. We were introducing some of the latest technologies like flipped learning, and we established online educational infrastructure which helped us to be successfully handling the challenge of COVID-19. So what does this mean in terms of international cooperation? Well, KAIST started through international cooperation. In other words, without international cooperation, KAIST doesn't exist. It was US aid to really establish KAIST. At the beginning, we had to work really hard to really have a functioning university. But the first official lecture of KAIST was delivered by a Nobel laureate in physics. And we offered computer education to all the incoming students so that they can be well-versed in computers in their research and learning. And in 1990, we established a number of establishments for international cooperation for our growth. So we had a number of MOUs with reputable institutions like UC Berkeley, Tokyo Tech, ETH, and etc. And we started having dialogue with the international community. We invited 1992 the ABET, American Engineering Accreditation Board, to evaluate KAIST. And their conclusion was KAIST graduate school is top 10% equivalent of US universities. In 1994, we recruited our first ever foreign national professor, and KAIST was ranked #1 university by Asia Week in 1999, and KAIST has become introduced by the Science and Nature magazine to the international community as the best science and technology university in the world, in South Korea. And then 21st century comes, we started having a major development in international cooperation. So we invited Robert Rufflin as our first foreign national president. We hosted our first international conference organized by undergrad students. We had the first grand plan for KAIST globalization, and we announced the President's Advisory Council, which started in 2006 and still continues today, basically inviting all the leaders of the global community and giving us advice and think about the future of our university. We also started this International Presidential Forum of Global Research Universities that also has continued through 2016, and it is still continuing as a very important forum of international leaders, university presidents, to talk about the future of university, role of university in society. We also started offering all of our classes in English in 2007. We opened our office in Silicon Valley. KAIST finally entered top 100 ranking according to Times Higher Education. Oops. I continue to push wrong button. And 2010 comes. Really, through this achievement, we started having global spotlight. So we were invited by Davos Forum as a regular host of Idea Labs and number of events. KAIST become a host of important conferences, workshops, and meetings, including many of the scenes shown on this slide. And these are examples of our major collaborators. We had our first research collaboration in 1989 for satellite technology development, and then grew, and then now we have many collaborations. The right side of this slide shows our top research collaborators. So currently, we have 294 institutions from 65 countries as our official partners through MOUs. KAIST is currently ranked 39th spot according to the QS Global University Ranking. We are participating in a number of international universities, consortium or leagues, and our engineering technology program is ranked top 16th in the world. So what does this mean to the global community? What have we done so far during the last 50 years? I think first of all, KAIST presents hope and inspiration for many countries out there, especially the developing countries. After KAIST establishment, many new science and technology universities emerged. So KAIST represents one of the most, model science and technology universities in the world. We contribute to the goal of global value of higher education. KAIST, or South Korea, is a very popular destination for many of the students across the world. We are collaborating with many of the leading universities in the world to really improve the science, to move the science frontiers. So you can see from this slide our top collaborators, research collaborators in terms of research, joint research papers coming from MIT, Harvard, Denmark University of Technology, and Stanford, and etc. Also, we have contributed other countries in their national infrastructure building or science technology capacity building. So, for example, we exported our educational model to Kenya through Kenya KAIST project. Currently, we are conducting a very ambitious 3-year, $350 million project to handle the challenge of COVID-19 for the global community. This project, as was introduced by President Shin, is to develop mobile clinic modules, technologies for the treatment, diagnosis, and health management anywhere in the world by having this established setup. KAIST has been developing technologies for the humanity. These are some examples. We have developed this modular container school design for developing countries. We have developed this rehabilitation support robot technology for disabled people. We just won the gold medal in this so-called cyber athlete competition. We have developed these robots for crisis and disaster management, and we have also developed this new way of creating chemicals using a very environmentally friendly way. We are working closely with the international community to attain the goal of United Nations SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. We are raising future leaders from across the world, basically training future leaders in global security, nuclear non-proliferation, by inviting students. So far, 181 students from 37 countries, 72 universities has been trained by KAIST. We have become a catalyst for addressing today's global challenges and issues as represented on this slide. For example, we started our global think tank called Global Strategies Institute. That think tank so far has hosted 3 very high-profile events to deal with the challenges of COVID-19. For example, global cooperation in this post-COVID era, how to develop medical bioengineering in the future, and also how to conduct education in this very special era. So what does this mean for the future of KAIST? Basically, it can be summarized by these 3 bullets. We'd like to share our experiences with the rest of the world to support the realization of the dreams of many countries. We want to be a first mover to help the global community to overcome the challenges we're facing in this generation or in the days to come. We want to become a World Bridge Institute to promote peace and prosperity for the humankind. With our resources, our people, our technology management, in close collaboration with international community, we will deal with these global challenges and try our best to overcome these challenges like global climate change, disease, energy, environment, water, food, crisis, poverty, conflicts, war, terrorism, and then really work together to promote peace, freedom, social progress, equal rights, and human dignity for our global community. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being with us this afternoon.
Thank you, Professor Yim. Next, we will have a talk with our panelists to discuss about how KAIST can contribute to the global community. Each panelist will be given 4 minutes to share their insights, which will be followed by a 30-minute panel discussion afterwards. Let us hear from the panelists in the order of USA, UAE, Kenya, Denmark, Pakistan, Egypt, UK, and KAIST. Please join me in welcoming Rob Rapson, U.S. Chargé d'Affaires to South Korea.
Let's try the mute button first. Unmute. Hi, everyone. I'm Rob Rapson, Chargé d'Affaires at the U.S. Embassy in Seoul. Thank you, President Shin and Vice President Yim, for inviting me today to participate in this very auspicious occasion. I'd also like to acknowledge the many ambassadors joining today. Let me extend a big congratulations to you and everyone at KAIST on the Institute's 50th anniversary event, a celebration of 5 decades of excellence. I'm delighted to speak with you all today and only wish that I could be there in person. Since his inauguration just over 3 weeks ago, President Joe Biden and his administration have committed to refresh and reinvigorate our national science and technology strategy to set us on a course for the years to come. In the same vein, the new administration has pledged to strengthen and deepen our strong and long-standing partnership and alliance with Korea across all fronts. And I can assure you that collaboration in science and technology will continue to be one of those fronts, a priority and a key pillar of our relationship. You may recall that one of the very first calls by a senior Biden administration official to his Korean counterpart was by climate change envoy and former Senator John Kerry to Environment Minister Han Jong-ae. KAIST, of course, perfectly illustrates the endurance and strength of our long-standing partnership. Founded in 1971 with support from the U.S. Agency for International Development, KAIST has become one of the top research universities in the world and a key contributor to Korea's rapid growth into an economic and scientific powerhouse. KAIST also has developed close R&D relationships with many U.S. universities, research institutes, and private sector firms, including MIT, NASA, and IBM. While acknowledging the past, we of course must look to the future and keep our focus on the new horizons and challenges: climate change, health, the opportunities of space and the micro-universe, new materials, plus cybersecurity and more. As we move into a new digital age, KAIST and other research institutes will play a critical role accelerating Korea's branding as an innovation nation through their work developing and advancing Fourth Industrial Revolution technologies, including quantum technologies, artificial intelligence, and 6G. These technologies are the path to the future, and the decisions and discoveries made today will have a great impact on tomorrow. Of course, there's no time for complacency. Other countries are making unprecedented investments and doing everything in their power to promote growth of new industries and eclipse our scientific and technological leadership. Our collective future depends on our ability to at least keep pace in the fields that will define the economy of tomorrow. As we look to emerge from this pandemic, we recognize now more than ever the critical importance of science in developing vaccines, therapies, and new technologies that preserve both our health and our way of life. We must continue to encourage the future of scientific thought, protect the integrity of the research process, ensure the property rights of our discoveries, and strive to support research for the benefit of future generations. As incubators of scientific thought and leaders in the S&T field, the significance of research universities like KAIST cannot be overstated. Science and technology have flourished in the United States, Korea, and elsewhere because of the rich ecosystems of people, policies, and institutions. These ecosystems must continually be nurtured and refreshed to succeed in this rapidly changing world. In closing, let me again offer my congratulations on KAIST's 50th anniversary of excellence, and thank you for all you do that furthers the strong U.S.-Korea S&T partnership. We look forward to our continued collaboration in scientific research and technology, and we all expect more great things from KAIST in the years to come. Thank you. 감사합니다.
Thank you, Ambassador. Next, we have Mr. Abdullah Saif Al Nuaimi, UAE Ambassador to South Korea.
Your Excellency, distinguished participants, good afternoon. First of all, I would like to congratulate KAIST for its 50th anniversary and the success it has made over the past 50 years and best wishes for the future. And also I would like to thank President Shin and Vice President Yim to give us this opportunity to be part of their celebration. Our relation, UAE and Republic of Korea, we start our strategic partnership in 2009. At that time, during we launched the Baraka project, it was the first peaceful nuclear being built in the Middle East. And after that, we upgraded our relation to a special strategic partnership between UAE and Republic of Korea. Our relation with KAIST started in 2009 when we sent some of our students to study in KAIST University, especially in the engineering and the technical side in the nuclear. At that time, also the collaboration started between KAIST University and Khalifa University. In 2010, KAIST awarded an honorary Doctor of Science and Technology for the service of humanity to His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi and Deputy Supreme Commander of the UAE Armed Force. In 2019, and there was an opening of the Joint Research Center between KAIST and Khalifa University in UAE. Last year, in 2020, UAE and the Republic of Korea celebrate the 40th anniversary of establishment of their diplomatic relations. And this year, 2021, in December, UAE will complete the 50 years anniversary of establishment of the UAE Federation. The UAE announced 2020 to be the year of the preparation for the next 50 years toward the next 50. This year, on February 9, the UAE became the 5th nation to successfully send a spacecraft to Mars when its robotic probe named Hope, which is Amal in Arabic, being orbiting Mars. Later this year, in October, the UAE will host Expo. 2020 is going to be in Dubai. Our expectation, around 25 million will visit this platform. Is going to be for 6 months. Based on what we have accomplished over the past year, the UAE and Republic of Korea special strategic partnership will continue for the next 50 years and beyond. We're looking to enhance our cooperation between the two countries in a different field. Will be in high considered by the UAE. Cooperation in education, research, especially in the nuclear and the energy sector. Also expanding our cooperation in science, technology, especially in the fourth industrial revolution, the technology, and the new growth engine, such as AI and AR and VR and IoT. And promoting the cooperation in offline, online, wireless, electronic, and transport systems. And reinforcing the collaboration in healthcare, pharmaceutical, and biotechnology, and post-cooperation, agriculture, and food technology. We had an experiment between UAE and the Republic of Korea to grow the rice in a smart way, smart farming in the UAE. And the result of the experiment was really promising and successful. And we're looking to continue our reinforcement cooperation in defense and technology based on the special strategic partnership between the two countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Next, we have Madame Wende Munzi, Kenyan Ambassador to South Korea.
President and Vice President of KAIST, Your Excellencies, faculty members of KAIST, KAIST students, the alumni, wherever you are, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. A very good afternoon to each of you, and please allow me on my own behalf, on behalf of the government and the people of Kenya, to express our hearty congratulations on the marking of the 50th anniversary of KAIST. We take note of the leadership that Korea plays through trailblazing institutions such as KAIST in leading the global economic revolution through cutting-edge technology. Indeed, the success that both enjoy is really intertwined. KAIST can proudly claim its stake in Korea's accomplishment and global positioning. Coming from a country that has a long-standing relationship with Korea, one that dates back to 1964, we're also uniquely placed as a partner of KAIST, and it's therefore a real delight for us to be participating in this forum today to discuss the global values and synergies that we share with you. This symposium's timing could not be more apt. Kenya is currently witnessing a technological paradigm shift that's empowering our ordinary citizens, reshaping our communities, and indeed our lifestyles. The digital wave that's ushered in innovative thinking, digital entrepreneurship opportunities, and really at the core of it, the propelling of STI has meant a lot for Kenya. I'm sure that there's some of you watching us today that are a little bit conversant of where we are technologically. You may know about the innovative spirit of Kenya, our thriving tech ecosystem, and we're famously dubbed as the Silicon Savannah. We've got trailblazing innovations such as M-Pesa, which was one of the earlier mobile banking apps that capitalized, first of all, on the fact that just a mere 5% of Kenyans had access to banking services. And today, through M-Pesa, we've really revolutionized the way that we transact. Of course, as you may know, in 2007, shortly into 2008, we had a little bit of post-election violence, and everything has a silver lining. Somebody invented an app called Ushahidi, which in Kiswahili means testimony or witness. And what that's resulted in is it's a groundbreaking information gathering, visualization, and interactive mapping system that's actually used around the globe. And most recently, it was even deployed during the US elections. So Ushahidi and M-Pesa have really stimulated world-class entrepreneurship in Kenya. The government recognizes the value of STI in wealth creation and in building human capital, just as Korea did when you emerged from the war. Because of this, we've given it priority in our development blueprint, which we call the Vision 2030. And right now, we're actually in the third medium-term plan of implementing it. This portion is really dedicated directly towards integrating STI into our national production processes and making sure that technology is used across all platforms on national development, across all the sectors. So, in terms of aspiration and what KAIST's future role is as we envision it, if Kenya is anything to go by, we believe that KAIST's future role is going to simulate what it's about to do in Kenya, which is go from beyond just being an institution of excellence, but to becoming an institution of strategic national importance in a country beyond just Korea. We've heard accounts of where you already have a footprint, but we can proudly claim the position of possibly being the first country globally to have an actual replica, give or take, of KAIST, another KAIST. In this case, the K not being Korea, but the K being Kenya. The concept of KAIST, that is the Kenya Advanced Institute for Science and Technology, was conceived between the government of Korea and the government of Kenya in 2013, really modeling against the stellar performance of KAIST and its impact on the Korean economy. We believe that with the assistance and collaboration of the Korean government and KAIST as an institution, we truly are going to be able to transform our country into the industrialized middle-income country that we are all aspiring to have. The KAIST that we are about to set up is going to be the only graduate-only institute that's focused wholly on STI. Our aspiration is to produce highly qualified scientists and engineers, much as Korea did, so that whether it's specializing in mechanical and nuclear engineering, electrical engineering, ICT, chemical engineering, and of course, as an agricultural country, agricultural biotechnology, we will move the country forward. We already have the requisite funding. We've got the architectural and curriculum designs in place. And I'm happy to report that we have a groundbreaking that's anticipated in the next few months. So we're truly well on track. Our Ministry of Education has played a really key role in brokering this extension of our bilateral relations with Korea. And we consider ourselves very privileged to be moving forward. So here, I think I need to just pause and express on behalf of all Kenyans, on behalf of my president, our sincerest thanks to Dr. Kunmo Chung for really immersing himself in the process. He is actually a member of the Kenya National Economic and Social Council. And it is through him, and of course then the other hardworking people, such as Professor Pong from your Department of Nuclear and Quantum Engineering, and Professor So Young Kim, that have really ensured that this has gone from just being a concept to something that is going to be a reality in just a few months. And if the aspirations are to enhance Kenya's well-being through infrastructure development, technology convergence, then we are doing well. We are doing well. And this is just another of the many milestones between the relationship between Korea and Kenya. We think it's a hallmark of the shared aspirations and the values of these two countries. As much as we're going to take this KAIST and customize it to meet our local needs, we believe that the values from the onset, the model, are going to be shared, and they will serve our two countries well going forward. Indeed, from a Kenyan perspective, it will help develop our human resources, help with reforms on policy, and help spur what you have been able to do, which is the indigenous industry. We already have the capacity we have the foundation. What we need is really the capacity. And so in terms of when it comes to posturing, Kenya's position right now is KAIST is already posturing itself as global. We believe that you have succeeded here, you succeed elsewhere, you will succeed in Kenya, and you will have a direct and tangible role in propelling Kenya into being the cradle of ICT revolution on the continent. You will have a direct hand back to the values that you just shared in empowering ordinary Kenyan citizens and reshaping communities and moving us into where we need to be in terms of being able to think innovatively and drive industry and competitiveness. So we will produce, as a result of this collaboration, highly qualified scientists that can cultivate improved and new technologies, such as those that your own companies, such as Samsung and LG have. And we believe that with the requisite training, we'll actually be able to do other things, such as in biopharma, link into our Big Four agenda by developing self-reliance when it comes to the manufacturing of pharmaceuticals, including vaccines, so that we will be less dependent on donors, and importantly, we will be able to provide our citizens the universal healthcare coverage that we have promised them. So today, as we congratulate you, as I close, I just want to say that Kenya is very proud to be sharing its part of its journey with you. And we look forward to the groundbreaking of the KAIST in Kenya, the Kenya version of KAIST, in a few months, hopefully within the first half of this year. We congratulate you once more, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now, Mr. Einar Jensen, Danish Ambassador to South Korea, will continue the next speech.
Thank you very much. Dear President Shin and Vice President Yim, thank you for the invitation to celebrate KAIST 50 years anniversary. KAIST has been on a remarkable journey, and I'm pleased that the Danish Technical University has been a close traveler companion on this journey. Education, science, and innovation is instrumental if we, the global society, are to reach the Sustainable Development Goals. In recent years, Korea has announced ambitious green targets to increase renewables in the energy mix and to become CO2 net zero by 2050. Ambitions backed up by an unprecedented green investment package, the Green New Deal. Well done. Korea is on the right track to align itself with the Paris Agenda and is becoming a frontrunner of low-carbon countries. In 2019, the Danish government launched an ambitious climate law to cut emissions by 70% by 2030 and committed to take global leadership on Sustainable Development Goal number 7, securing affordable clean energy for all. Our two countries share the conviction that going green is not just good for the planet, it's also the foundation for the future growth. In Denmark, we are on the track to reach the first 60–65% of emission reduction. This has been achieved through massive investment and through public-private partnerships based on knowledge. However, in order to reach the last 5 to 10% emission reductions, we rely on science and innovation. And that's why it is so important with the collaboration between universities. A great example is the world's first energy island in the North Sea. Initially, the artificial island will cover an area of 18 football pitches and serve as a hub for 200 giant offshore wind turbines with a capacity of 3 gigawatt. This secures clean energy for 3 million households, more than we have in Denmark. In the future, the energy islands will have 10 gigawatts capacity and supply energy to 10 million households in Denmark and surrounding countries. As a conclusion, I would like to offer a bold vision. Denmark and Korea's unique Green Growth Alliance enjoys unprecedented momentum. Regardless of the solutions, wind power generation, power to X, alternative fuels, energy efficiency, resource recovery, or smart and sustainable cities, just to name a few. When it comes to green transition, it's very difficult to go alone, but together we can go far. As a fast and green transition is not easy, but it is necessary, and it is possible as well as profitable. Offshore wind is a great example of how Denmark and Korea can cover the full supply chain together and power the world in the future. But we complement each other in many ways. Together, Denmark and Korea have the opportunity to significantly contribute to global green transition. It is happening as we are speaking, and it will influence our life and work for the next decades and generations to come. I therefore invite KAIST to be a part of this journey, securing a fast and profitable global green transition. Thank you very much, Kamsahamnida, and I look forward to the panel discussion.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now we will hear from Madame Momtaz Zahra Baloch, Pakistani Ambassador to South Korea.
Thank you so much, President Shin, Vice President M, dear panelists, participants. Good afternoon to everyone. It is my great pleasure to join this panel with such eminent colleagues in the diplomatic community. And congratulations to KAIST on celebrating its 50th anniversary. My special appreciation goes to President Shin for his leadership of KAIST for the last several years and his dedication to scientific knowledge and research. As he concludes his tenure, he must be very satisfied with the progress that KAIST has made under his dynamic leadership. Korea's development path through scientific innovation, in which KAIST has played a critical role, is a shining example for developing countries like Pakistan. And as was said today, it is a hope and inspiration for developing countries. Pakistan and KAIST have a long-standing relationship. In recent years, over 250 Pakistani students have graduated from KAIST in scientific disciplines. And I understand currently about 60 students are pursuing master's and PhD programs in KAIST in natural sciences and engineering. The reality is that Korea is becoming a favored destination for Pakistani students and scholars interested in pursuing scientific studies studies abroad. Traditionally, thousands of young scientists would go to the United States and Europe to pursue higher education. However, in recent years, owing to many issues, including visa problems that these students face, despite securing admissions and scholarships in prestigious academic programs, We are seeing a new trend, and the trend is that the students in scientific disciplines enroll in universities in China, Korea, Singapore, and Japan in increasingly large numbers. For the last few years, we have seen that Pakistanis have become the largest number of international students pursuing PhD programs in the Republic of Korea and in China. These scientists, on their return, contribute to scientific education and development of Pakistan. And KAIST graduates are now holding important positions in educational and research institutions and are even holding some important policy positions in Pakistan. So basically, what is happening is that these alumni are establishing linkages with scientific and educational institutions from where they study. And KAIST is thus playing an important role in Korea's soft diplomacy. And Pakistan would like to strengthen these linkages, and KAIST, we believe, can play an even more proactive role in developing a network of its alumni with a view to strengthening scientific research. You would agree with me that collaboration in education and research is important for development of science. And Pakistan is in the process of establishing linkages with several prestigious universities and research institutions in Europe and China. We are on track to such collaboration with universities in Korea and are having substantive discussions with these institutions, including KAIST. These collaborations, we believe, can take place through establishment of sister campuses, as was proposed, as has been done in case of Kenya, but also in cooperation in collaborative research, development of educational material, including syllabi development, collaborative training programs for teachers and technicians, postdoc and internship opportunities for scientists, and joint degree programs. So we believe that alumni and scientific diaspora can play an important role in developing these linkages and boosting innovation at home and abroad. And we would like to learn from the Korean experience in encouraging scientists to come back and contribute to the development and scientific progress in Pakistan. The idea is to convert brain drain into wisdom gain. Not all scientists who do not return are staying away because of economic reasons. Many times they are interested in returning, but are not able to find opportunities matching their high qualification and expertise. We are therefore looking to develop opportunities for collaborative research between scientists and institutions. And we believe that institutions like KAIST can play an important role in this endeavor. Unlike the 20th century, this century is dominated by a new trend where R&D is being spearheaded by industry and corporations. And multinationals are relocating their research labs and establishing R&D centers in other countries and fostering spread of scientific knowledge. Universities, on the other hand, have remained more immobile. And only recently they have started establishing campuses abroad. We believe that they need to be more proactive. And I am glad that KAIST is prioritizing this aspect in its future vision. I'm sure you would agree that such collaboration is crucial for cross-fertilization of ideas and spread of scientific knowledge. It has become important, especially as studies have shown, including by UNESCO, in view of the global demographic changes and declining populations in developed countries. So policies of collaborative scientific research can bring long-term benefits to all countries which participate in this collaborative scientific research. We have also seen with the history of KAIST how the USAID support for technological innovation in Korea brought Korea not just on a path for development, progress, and prosperity, but it also established long-term linkages between scientific communities of Korea and the United States. We hope that by establishing similar linkages with counterpart institutions, we would be able to develop science and foster scientific growth and innovation. I would like to conclude by congratulating KAIST for giving us this opportunity to share our views, and thank KAIST for giving us this vision and agreeing with the fundamental idea that we have to share experiences, and KAIST can be a leading institution in Asia that can lead us to that path. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now we will have Mr. Hazim Fahmy, Egyptian Ambassador to South Korea.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. President Shin, Vice President Yim, ladies, excellencies, and gentlemen. First of all, I'd like to start by thanking President Shin for his inspiring presentation. It will take me a few days to absorb all the new concepts and terminology introduced, which are fascinating as we contemplate the next 50 years of KAIST. Of course, KAIST played a major role in combining the brilliance of the human brain with science to produce a miracle in Korea. That was the last 50 years. As we contemplate for the coming 50 years, I would like to highlight two things that we expect from KAIST. First of all, it should take Korea to higher levels than it already did as a global leader in science and technology. As the world faced the challenges of the post-COVID-19, some of the challenges that KAIST should have a major role in is the digital transformation of the world, with all the artificial intelligence and big data science and all these, the greening of the economy, and the transformation of health and education systems to be adapted to the new changes in the post-COVID world. However, a very specific niche I think that KAIST could really have a huge impact on is the replicating the model in many developing countries. The miracle that happened in Korea, KAIST holds like intellectual property over how to apply that model with local adaptation in many other countries. And I think this has to go with the ambition of KAIST of having the 10 branches of universities worldwide, and I think they can have much more, and we're looking forward for Egypt to be one of them. Professor Shin mentioned the Thurman report, which was the report that established KAIST, headed by the American Professor Thurman, who was Vice President of Stanford, but some people do not know that he was also the founder of the Silicon Valley, another miracle in a great country. So I think that, I hope that with the 10 campuses that KAIST intends to have globally, that we have 10 new Thurman reports. Maybe this time they could be called the Shin reports, and they could have the same transformative impact that the Thurman report had on Korea and on KAIST. Second, when it comes to Egypt and dealing with KAIST, as we are entertaining and closely to have a partnership with KAIST to have a branch in Egypt, our president has 4 areas that are the priorities for us as we go into the future. One is the digital transformation of the Egyptian economy, the greening of the Egyptian economy, to have a quantum leap in exports, and to have a world-class education and labor force. I think KAIST is a perfect partner for that, and it could be the catalyst that will make this happen and transform it into a reality. In this regard, I would like to mention two features that would help. Each year, tens of thousands of students from Africa and the Middle East come to Egypt for its educational system. So it is a hub for its region in education. Having a KAIST presence model in Egypt, I think will benefit a lot from this presence of all these inputs. The diversity of students from different countries, bring diversity of ideas, diversity in innovation, and is very good for branding both KAIST and Egypt. Second feature, Egypt has a good pool of talents throughout its history. And its modern history, we had 4 Nobel Prize winners. One of them in the area of science recently, in 1999, Professor Ahmed Zouail, the late Ahmed Zouail, who got the Nobel Prize as being the father of femtochemistry, and he got it in chemistry. Interestingly enough, he was working in Caltech, whom we had recently as President Rosenbaum today. I hope and I think when we have a KAIST model in Egypt, that we will be able to produce many, many more Nobel laureates having benefit from the pool of talents is there and from the model that KAIST offer for Egypt and the rest of the world. As I conclude, I would like to mention that I met Professor Kun-Mo Chang recently, who Ambassador Mwenzi mentioned was a big factor in having KAIST in Kenya. He told me that he was a member of the Thurman team who wrote the Thurman report. And he was a lecturer at MIT when he was invited to come back to Korea to work on the Thurman team and to develop the concept for KAIST. And he told me that he wrote the final chapter of the report looking ahead. And I was so proud to meet him as he was telling me about KAIST, which I already knew from President Shin a lot about it, and I was so proud to hear it from him. And I do hope that in few years to come, when I am in the age of Professor Kun-Mo Chang, or maybe younger, that we will have the KAIST model in Egypt, and I can see Egypt have gone through the same path that Korea have gone through with the help and catalyst of the presence of KAIST in Egypt. I'd like to thank you all, and congratulations, Professor Shin, for the 50th anniversary of KAIST, and we look forward for its miraculous contribution for science and technology worldwide and in my country, Egypt. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now, Mr. Simon Smith, British Ambassador to South Korea, will continue the next speech.
Hello, everyone. Simon Smith, British Ambassador to the Republic of Korea. I'd like to add my congratulations to Professor Shin, to President Shin, Vice President Yim. Your presentations at the start of this session could almost have been a sort of presentation of the recent history of the Republic of Korea, because not only did they illustrate how much KAIST has contributed to the extraordinary economic and technological transformation of the Republic of Korea, but I think it also underlined how KAIST is already almost kind of looking ahead of the game. It's been clear to us for centuries that the great stimulus of being first in the field, the stimulus of being the first with innovation, of how much that powers science and research. But it's more recently, I think, become clear to us just how essential international collaboration is. And I think your presentations at the start of this session, with the emphasis on international collaboration, I think they too are very representative of the directions in which we all need to be going on an international basis in the future. Seen from the perspective of the UK, 2021 for us is a year of particular challenges. We are hosting the G7 process this year, and we are hosting the COP26 conference of the parties to the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. But this doesn't mean that that is just a one-year focus, because both processes, I think, are looking at things, looking at decisions which hope to set positive trends for years to come. And I think where KAIST fits into this is obvious. The G7, as with many other international bodies, is going to be focusing on the response to the pandemic, to future pandemic preparedness, to looking not only at vaccines and therapies, but to looking at how the solution to the pandemic and the response to this is a really inclusive and equitable response. And that means not only the short-term work on vaccines and therapies, it means ensuring that we are accelerating our development of those technologies for the future that will keep us successful and in good health for much longer. That is a truly global effort, and so is the effort to address the challenge of global warming and climate change. And there again, there is immense expectation put on institutions like KAIST. Many governments have in recent times set themselves 2050 net zero goals, and that's a real challenge to scientific institutions. Not only to respond to the goals that have been set, but actually to produce the innovations that help us to accelerate the process towards those goals and to make sure that by 2050, we are not sitting here just reminding ourselves that we've made empty commitments, but we've arrived at 2050 and we can reassure ourselves that the technologies that we've been able to develop have enabled us to defeat the threat of climate change and to work for an equitable future for the world in a situation in which that is no longer a threat. My time has run out and I will just offer two more very brief thoughts. One, I hope that KAIST will also play its part as a champion for the promotion of diversity and inclusion in the research community, and will play its part as one of the world's most respected scientific institutions in ensuring that we do not continue to underuse the talents and skills of half the population of the world. We must do better in using the talents and skills of women, particularly in technological applications, in technological research, and in technological and scientific professions. And lastly, I'd like to say that another challenge for respected scientific institutions like KAIST is to play their part, not only in accelerating the development of new technologies and in the cooperative effort that requires, but also in developing those systems which help us to take better approaches to the ethical implications of the introduction of new technologies. The next few decades are going to face us with not only technological challenges per se, but challenges as to how we make that technology work in a fair and equitable way, and in a way which increases the health and happiness of populations around the globe. So that's just a very small challenge with which I'd like to finish in offering to our friends in KAIST, and to finish by expressing my appreciation for all the cooperation that my embassy and the UK has enjoyed with KAIST, and to express my immense confidence that the achievements of the last 50 years provide KAIST a brilliant basis from which to ensure success in the next 50 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Last but not the least, we have Professor Tae-Young Lee, International Relations Advisor to the KAIST President.
Thank you, Professor An. It truly is an honor for me to be on this panel with Your Excellencies from 7 countries, and I look forward to very exciting, fruitful discussion today. As we heard today, KAIST was established at a time of economic hardship and was charged with the mission to help the country industrialize its economy. And for the past 50 years, KAIST has fulfilled its mission with remarkable efficiency and effectiveness, working with government and industries of Korea to build an economy which is now the world's 9th largest. Now at its 50th anniversary, KAIST is contemplating a new mission as a global institution to transform the world and help humanity meet its challenges. And make no mistake, there are plenty of serious challenges today, ranging from climate change, which we heard more than a few times today, to growing inequalities and fighting pandemics. And unlike the many crises mankind has faced in the past, the problems we have today will not be resolved by local actions or politics, but will require global efforts and collaborations, using approaches based on sound science and technology. And KAIST wants to be a major contributor to this cause. On the education side, KAIST, like many top global universities, are aiming at fostering future talents who can lead on the global stage to solve global problems. Such leaders are likely to have to work with people and organizations of diverse culture and backgrounds to innovate and to form consensus. For this, KAIST wants to instill in its students three major traits. First is the will to contribute to the world for the benefit of entire mankind. Second is the problem-solving skill. Third, but not least, is the entrepreneurial spirit to put their ideas to practice, and the resilience to see them through despite multiple setbacks. I know this is a lot to ask from our students, but this is exactly what is expected of KAIST. And KAIST has taken this mission to its heart and already created a new major designed to foster such future leaders. New academic program named Transdisciplinary Studies has been created and has begun accepting students last year. In this major, students will design their own curriculum that cuts across multiple disciplines, not just science and engineering, but also arts and humanity, business and economics, entrepreneurship, societal engagement, etc. So as a research-focused university, you can expect to see KAIST more on the global stage, working on global problems. It will work not just with the government and industries of Korea, but also with governments of other nations, multinational corporations, and NGOs. Kenya KAIST, a collaboration between the two governments, Export-Import Bank of Korea and KAIST, is an example of such an endeavor, and you bet that you can expect to see KAIST engaging in more such activities in the future. Of course, collaborations with multiple international entities will come with challenges and complications. And that is why I think it is so important to begin by really understanding each other, particularly what the other party is seeking to get out of the collaboration. About 4 years ago, KAIST hosted what's called Embassy Day. And 40+ embassy representatives from various countries, most of whom ambassadors, participated. And I think this kind of dialogue is really instrumental in building lasting, meaningful collaborations. And of course, open, candid dialogues like the one we're having today will go a long way in opening up such dialogue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Lee. And thank you once again to all the panelists for your insight. Now, we will have the discussion moderated by Professor Man Sung-im.
We really plan to have a number of questions asking all the ambassadors and then asking also some common questions. But I understand some of the ambassadors has to leave at 5, so we'll have to shorten the discussion. Again, thank you for your brilliant comments, suggestions, and encouragement. We will keep those in our mind and really use them in our future. Let me ask my first question. Your Excellency, Charles Robson, United States of America is one of the main reasons why it exists today. Now, at this point, at this important juncture, my question to you is, what does the United States see KAIST's role in the future? How can KAIST continue to expand the collaboration with the United States? Where do you see KAIST in the next 50 years? I think you're muted. Sorry, I think we cannot hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Yes,
You missed
great.
my poor attempt at humor. That's good. But thanks for that question. It's an important one, one that requires obviously some thought and one that can't be answered in the course of just a minute or two. But certainly the U.S. is delighted with the role we've played in helping KAIST get off the ground. I recall myself coming to Korea first in 1984, working as a young diplomat and having an opportunity to visit KAIST down in Daejeon back in those early days. And I have to say, my impressions were very strong about the potential of KAIST and the direction you were going on. You approached, the scientific problems of the time with a vigor and a striving for excellence that reflected well on the institution. And now, 35, 40 years later, we're seeing that in so many different ways and in different aspects. Your reputation precedes you, but of course you can't rest on your reputation. You have to continue that striving for excellence. And in that way, collaboration with the United States will continue, we believe, we hope, in all the directions that many of the ambassadors around the panel today have been discussing. In fact, I see that on KAIST planning book is a decision to open a campus in California, one of your KAIST campuses. So you've come back home, and it's sharing with us that experience that you're now sharing with the rest of the world. So indeed, we're very optimistic about our collaboration and coordination going forward with KAIST in so many different ways. All I can say is continue to emphasize excellence, and the only thing limiting you is the vision, and maybe a budget here and there might limit, but the future is very bright indeed.
Thank you, Ambassador. My next question goes to Your Excellency, Ambassador Smith. The world is hyper-connected with economic integration, and that brings us a lot of opportunities as well as challenges. These challenges include the spread of fake news, spreading of national geopolitical debacle leading into global crisis. Do you think universities can play a role in dealing with the potential future challenge? Do you think a session like this we're having today can lead us into international dialogue to collectively and multilaterally address the concern?
Yes, I do think that there are things that respected scientific and research institutions like KAIST can do, and similar organizations throughout the world. It would be pretty unfair, I think, of me to suggest that KAIST should be relied upon to come up with the global solution to how we deal with fake news. But I think that there is definitely a role for research institutions in promoting the power and the value of evidence, in championing the integrity of how research is evaluated, and in giving people confidence that there is somewhere that you can go where you can rely on getting the facts. I think we are in danger in many of our discussions, in many of our decision-making processes, in being cast off track by the exploitation and the abuse of what is non-evidence, and by the use of fake news or fabricated evidence. And I think that there is a need for something of a resistance to this trend. And as I say, I think institutions like KAIST, which place an extremely high value on real evidence and on the integrity of research, I think they can make a really important contribution to enabling people to judge for themselves where the truth lies and where the lies are lurking for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. My next question goes to Your Excellency, Ambassador Moinzi. You represent in your own upbringing and education multicultural, and you as a female leader, you cover many grounds that KAIST as an institute needs to cover. So do you have any suggestions based on your experiences and insights and wisdom how South Korea or KAIST could become truly a multicultural educational institute or more embracing the gender equality? Again, you're muted.
My apologies about that. Thank you for the question. So in embracing a strategy that responds to the issues that are created by the ever-changing demographics in the student body is really the healthiest approach. It embraces diversity, it builds mutual respect and the understanding and appreciation of different cultures. And Kenya, I think, is really a good example. We have over 42 ethnic groups. We speak more than 42 tribes. And as we increasingly become urbanized, we've been really forced to recognize that diversity is actually our strength. And importantly, I mean, girls and women are an invaluable part of society. They have unlimited potential, and they wield a silent but essential power. Now, the interesting thing is Korea and Kenya both have very progressive legal frameworks which ensure that there's equal access to education. However, notwithstanding that, there is definitely there's a disparity in the numbers. The gender skewing is significant. If you look at your own institution, KAIST, your enrollment this year, you have about 19% females and 81% male. Now, in Kenya, at the primary school level education, it's not as bad. Approximately 85% of the learners progress from primary to secondary. But of those that proceed from secondary into higher learning, only about a third of those are female, and even fewer are those who pursue STEM courses. So broadly, I think there's just a few things that Korea can learn from Kenya. And one is to understand that the barriers that constrain women are multifaceted. For example, just a few years ago, and this, I don't even know why it took so long, it was, this conversation surfaced that many of our girl child were missing school because of their menstrual cycles. As a result of that, the president in 2017 signed into law a bill to amend the Basic Public Education Act to ensure that all primary and secondary schools had sanitary pads as a core provision, just to ensure that girls did not miss classes because of their cycles. So, what is the barrier in Korea? Is it a cultural issue? Is it an orientation that, where girls feel that they will not thrive in the sciences as much as the males? We constantly are evaluating our education system, and it's always our society's dynamics are changing. I think we're on the fourth cycle of trying to realize how to deal with the ethnic issues that we have, to deal with the gender issues that we have. And right now, the latest format that we have puts a lot of cognizance on the fact that our diversity is as much a tool as it can be a liability. When I look at some of the programs that Korea has, there seems to be lots of incentives, not just legally, but even what KAIST does, working with the marginalized populations, and more so the rewards that are given to female scientists. But I think what might help is to expand the outreach programs, not just to target the marginalized, but to target girls when they're in their most impressionable stage. So perhaps working with the government from a policy standpoint, or working with the media, might help push this needle from the 19% you currently have onwards. Because as the African saying goes, if you educate a man, you educate an individual, but if you educate a woman, you educate a whole nation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Now I see 1 minute left for the panel, according to the instructions I have. So I have a number of very interesting questions I'd like to ask, but I think our time is limited. I have to, allow our ambassadors to leave for their other important duties. So at this point, I'd like to conclude the session by simply saying a few words. This session has been brilliant. We were so enthralled and then encouraged by the comments made by the ambassadors. You charged us with a new mission. You challenged us with lofty goals. We are hopefully ready to take on those new challenges. As our president mentioned, our next 50 years will be really another stage of KAIST development. And hopefully, in next 50 years, at the end of next 50 years, our future generation will look back and say, oh, the comments you have made today, the ambassadors, have made a difference, and the effort we made through the 50 years of history really created something that didn't exist, and KAIST truly contributed to the global value. With that hope, I will conclude and congratulate and thank all of speakers and distinguished panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I would like to once again extend my gratitude to all participants for joining us today. During the KAIST 50th Anniversary International Symposium, which was under the two themes of the future role of universities in society in the next 50 years and KAIST for the global community, we were able to listen to many presentations and have meaningful discussions while sharing knowledge and experience as to how we can contribute to the future development of KAIST and envision its role in the next 50 years. Although we had to gather online due to COVID-19, I hope that in the future we will all be able to get together in the same physical space and have even more meaningful discussions on how to contribute to the welfare and prosperity of mankind. Once again, thank you very much to all participants for joining the KAIST 50th Anniversary International Symposium. We hope to see you again in the near future. Thank you and goodbye.